Crawford, I know the other guy's talking about he's already made plans that he's gonna fight. He's gonna fight Janibek. Well, you still got the Cuban assassin right here.
The second half of the fight put an emphasis on the fact that Bud was in fact outboxing him in the first half of the fight.
But Bud is more fierce, more fearsome, and more angrier, and more meaner than both of those guys.
The boxing world figured Terence Crawford would finally take a breather after marching into Las Vegas back in September 2025 and putting on a clinic against Canelo Alvarez, claiming undisputed status at 168. Most fighters would ease off after a moment like that, but Crawford isn't most fighters. Even as the lights were dimming at Allegiant Stadium, Bud was already plotting what came next. And the rumor that followed confirmed what many suspected: Crawford plans to drop down to 160. He's chasing history again, aiming for undisputed champion status in a fourth weight class.
The second half of the fight put an emphasis on the fact that Bud was in fact outboxing him in the first half of the fight. It is one of the biggest wins in boxing history. And now let Uncle Max gather around, children, and I will explain this. This is the situation, guys. No one has ever been a 4-division champion in boxing. Not a real one. Oh, Pacquiao won 8 and Oscar De La Hoya won 11 and this one won 15. No, I'm talking about Ring Magazine champ or lineal champ. You are the champion of that division.
Get them all.
Forever, the record was 3 by Henry Armstrong. Manny Pacquiao was the first dude to really win 4. Floyd gets credit for 4 for beating Canelo, but that wasn't at the junior middleweight limit. I don't count that.
Right.
I don't count that. Terence Crawford just joined Manny Pacquiao as the only legit 4-division champion in the history of boxing. And
that news is enough to send chills through the entire middleweight division, but there's one man who isn't stepping aside. In fact, he's moving straight toward the storm. A 42-year-old Cuban veteran is sliding right back into the spotlight. Erislandy Lara doesn't just want the fight, his team is aggressively pushing to make it a reality.
Been with Lara a long time. Long time. He's about to make history. When he unifies those titles, Crawford, I know the other guy's talking about he's already made plans that he's gonna fight. He's gonna fight Janibek. Well, you still got the Cuban assassin right here, baby. The technician, one of the best to ever do it. Canelo, you know we got. Come on, Canelo, you know, one of the best to ever do it, man.
According to Lara's camp, they've spotted something in Crawford's style that everyone else has missed. And if you assume this is just an older former champ chasing one last big payday, you might be making the exact mistake they believe Crawford is about to walk into.
Unification Cup, Marcel, you know. You've been there since the beginning. You were there for that Canelo robbery.
Unification coming.
It's coming. December 6th, baby.
And you want Crawford?
Hey, he can get it too. He can get it too. All the respect to him. One of the best to ever do it. But why wouldn't you want the best? He's at the elite. He's at the peak. Why wouldn't you want the best? Right? That's what it's all about, going against the best. Cream of the crop. One of the best to ever do it. Don't forget about my man Alex. And Louis D. Louis D. That's a product of Louis D. One of the best managers in boxing, baby. Yeah. Can you get a photo with Lara? Yeah.
Erislandy Lara and his trainer, Bob Santos, aren't being subtle. They're firing off direct warnings. Santos recently delivered a bold message aimed straight at the Omaha Star. Lara is the most dangerous opponent Crawford will face at 160, period.
I don't know, these guys both come from a big amateur background. You know, Lara is gonna obviously older, so that's why you probably favor Janibek. But Janibek, I don't think is a spring chicken himself, right? So I mean, it's one of those things where there's gonna be, I think, like Champ Chris said, it's not the most exciting fight, but there's a lot of chess here because these guys come from a very high IQ background, both in their amateur careers and it's spilled over into their pro careers. And there's decent power there as well. You know, Lara's getting some sort of highlight reel knockouts. We've seen Janibek do that here and there. So, you know, that kind of thing is also not out of the question.
Their approach is actually fascinating. Santos and Lara aren't banking on youth or knockout power. They're leaning on high-level boxing IQ. Their claim is simple: Crawford has never dealt with someone who can match him mentally in the ring. For more than a decade, Lara, the WBA champion, has been the guy who makes world-class fighters look average. Now his team is openly poking at Crawford's pride, asking the tough question: if Bud wants greatness, why wouldn't he want to face the division's most skilled fighter?
As Canelo Alvarez has been a great fighter his whole career, people like Erislandy Lara gave you the blueprint on how to beat him. But Bud is more fierce, more fearsome, and more angrier, and more meaner than both of those guys. So you know if they showed you the blueprint, Bud gonna go out there, take that blueprint, and do even more with it, which is what Bud did. So it was never a question in my mind whether Bud really was going to outbox me, just if he could take the punch. And right away he showed, bam, he could take the punch. So I knew from that point, if he just slow him down, which he did, he'd be okay. Then late in the fight, what other people still didn't see, late in the fight, Bud started hitting Canelo's body.
And if Crawford truly wants to cement himself as the greatest ever, his critics say he can't steer around the hardest fight in the division just because the man is in his 40s. Lara's team insists they found Bud's vulnerable spot. It's not about punching harder, it's about outsmarting him. Old clips have resurfaced of Lara breaking down how to neutralize elite counterpunchers, and fans are starting to see exactly how this matchup could play out.
You know, you favor Janibek, but if Janibek gives you one of these dud performances, you know, Lara has the craftiness to offset him, you know? So I think it's more important for Janibek to be the guy to really be on, because I think Lara, yeah, he's been inconsistent, but for the most part, you kind of know what you're going to get with Lara. You know, he can offset you, and he will offset you if you don't show up at your best. You favor Janibek because Lara is much older, but I don't know, man. I mean, if Janibek gives us one of those inconsistent performances that we've seen, you know, it's not out of the question that Lara here comes in and beats him.
That's it. That's it. Yes!
Lara has spent his whole career making aggressive fighters look lost, and his team believes Crawford's controlled aggression could work against him when standing in front of a southpaw who refuses to give up tactical control. Bob Santos didn't mince words. Lara is ready to unify right now. This is a noticeable shift for Lara. He's pursuing the sport's most dangerous fighter head-on. It's a high-risk move fueled by absolute confidence. They're not intimidated by Bud's speed or his ability to switch stances. They argue that Lara's world-class defense is the one thing Crawford can't solve.
Erislandy Lara, before we went on camera, you and I were talking about how long he's been in the game. Made his debut in 2008. Maybe the best pure boxer of this era, and that's saying a lot.
I mean, pure boxer who has transformed himself into a pure puncher, apparently. Since he's been fighting at middleweight, he's scoring first-round knockouts against, yeah, I mean, not the most descriptive opposition, but you mentioned how 160 hasn't been the deepest division as of late. But yeah, he started knocking guys out later, and we talked to Bob Santos about that, and he was saying, he's like, yeah, he always had power, but he moved more. Now that he's set down on his punches, he's not moving quite as much because he's got older legs. Now that power's starting to show itself, which you really need at middleweight. And even though Lara, came up from 54, had some really good big wins down there. I thought he beat Canelo Alvarez at 54, by the way. But it's now moved up to middleweight. It's turned out to be a good puncher at middleweight with not only respectable power but world-class power. And this is an interesting fight.
Yeah, he's an older guy, so obviously there's always those veteran tactics. But again, Alan Quinolli he's from the Soviet school of boxing, so I don't know how many Chris, maybe you know better than me. This guy was one of those guys with tons of amateur fights.
Absolutely. I don't know off the top of my head, but he's probably one of those guys with 200-300.
No, I do think we have to start rating that. We have to start understanding that. When we talk about a guy only lost with 8 fights, like I see idiot fans, for example, talking about when they want to criticize somebody, or he lost to this guy who only had 8 pro fights. Yeah, like the same guy with 8 pro fights also had 1,000 amateur fights too. Right. That actually matters, So.
But before any mega fight can be secured, Lara has to make it through a brutal test. On December 6th, he steps into a unification bout that many insiders believe he won't survive. He'll be facing Janibek Alimkhanuly, the heavy-handed WBO and IBF champion. This isn't just another title fight, it's essentially the semi-final on the road to Crawford. The stakes couldn't be higher. Janibek is the betting favorite for a reason. He's a prime knockout machine running through the division. Lara, on the other hand, is the crafty veteran who's seen every style in the book. If he loses, the dream ends and he likely retires with respect. But if he shocks the world, he immediately becomes the man holding the belts, and the key to the legacy Crawford is chasing.